On September 11, 2017, at a construction site in Krasnodar, a normal working day for a crew suddenly turned into a nightmare that led them to the police station. It all started with a cell phone found on the ground. Driven by the hope of returning the find to the owner, the construction workers decided to go through its contents. To their surprise, the phone was not password protected. The first picture in the gallery shocked them. It showed a man holding a severed human hand. Subsequent photos showed him interacting with that hand. One of the construction workers later recalled that the hand looked unnaturally clean, like a moulage, without a single trace of blood. He admitted that if he had not been told it was a real limb, he would have mistaken it for a wax replica. However, forensics later confirmed that it was a human hand. Curiosity drove the builders to continue looking at the photos, but they soon regretted it. The images they saw caused them anxiety, and they decided to take the phone to the police. One of them later confessed that the pictures had been bugging him for a long time. The police quickly identified the owner of the phone. It turned out to be 35-year-old Dmitry Bakshiv, who lived on the territory of the military base. In 3 hours, he was taken to the police station for questioning. Bakshiv's story seemed extremely strange to the police. He claimed that he had found the severed hand in a garbage can on his way home from work. According to him, he suddenly wanted to take her home and take some pictures. He told it with a grin, as if he was sharing a funny story. No one took the theory of a chance find seriously, so the police decided to search his apartment. What they found in Bakshev's dwelling on the territory of the military base exceeded the darkest expectations. The mess was incredible, as if the owners had spent years collecting garbage and things and then piled them in one huge pile. The smell in the apartment was so disgusting that one of the policemen couldn't stand it and ran outside. A neighbor smoking nearby only chuckled and said that they had been complaining about the smell for years, thinking there was a dead cat stuck somewhere. There were strange pictures scattered everywhere. One showing a head on a platter decorated with olives, lemon and orange slices as an unusual composition, particularly struck the investigators. The photo was dated December 28, 1999. One of the forensic experts, who had been in the police force for 20 years and had seen a lot, admitted that the site reminded him of the atrocities of the clown from the movie Horrors, and that he would never forget it. The refrigerator was opened cautiously. On the shelves was a jar with red and white contents and 19 pieces of meat lying around. Not at all what you would normally find in a refrigerator. In the freezer, another 7 pieces were discovered. On the kitchen table was a handwritten notebook with unusual recipes, written in a woman's handwriting, and notes on the ingredients used. Nearby lay a digital video disc with video instructions on how to prepare strange dishes. A horrifying object was found in the yard, a bucket with traces of severe decomposition, and all of this was happening on the grounds of an active military base. How no one had noticed it before remained a mystery. Dmitry was born on January 28, 1980, but his biological mother made the difficult decision to leave him in an orphanage. There he spent the first 3 years of his life, until fate smiled on him in the person of Svetlana and Vladimir Bakshiv, who decided to adopt him. However, Dmitry's childhood was far from simple. He grew up a withdrawn and aloof child, preferring solitude and avoiding socializing with people. He seemed to better understand the language of animals, finding common ground with dogs and cats, while human society remained alien to him. One of the neighbors later told the investigators that she had repeatedly seen little Dima sitting for long periods of time looking at insects. As a teenager, when Dmitry turned 15, his life took a drastic turn for the worse. First, Svetlana, his foster mother, who seemed to be the only person who truly loved him, passed away from cancer. Soon after, Vladimir, the foster father, kicked the teenager out on the street. It was said that Vladimir had always loved his own daughter more and was never able to accept Dmitry as his son. Once on the street, Dmitry quickly went downhill. He began stealing food to survive and then committed car theft, for which he served a short prison sentence. After his release, he seemed to try to get his life together and got a job at a construction site. Fate brought him together with Natalia, a woman born in 1975, who, unlike Dmitry, was characterized by great ambition. Having lost her mother early, she was brought up by her grandmother. Natalia dreamed of becoming a doctor, but was able to get only a nurse's education and got a job at a military base in Krasnodar. It was there that she met Dmitry. Probably, they were united by a common feeling of loneliness. They began to live together in a service apartment on the territory of the base. Soon, Natalia was fired from her job because of her addiction to alcohol, but for some reason they were not evicted from the apartment, so they remained living there, despite the fact that both of them no longer had anything to do with military service. After his arrest, Bakshiv initially denied his guilt, claiming that he had accidentally found the corpse and photographed it for fun. However, under the pressure of irrefutable evidence, he broke down and confessed to the murder of 34-year-old Elena Vakrashina. He gave the date of death as September 8, 2017, just 3 days before his phone with the gruesome photos was found. The story told by Dmitry turned out to be horrifying to the point of banality. He said that he and Natalia were drinking alcoholic beverages in a bar together with Elena. At some point, there was a conflict between the women. Dmitry suggested that Elena may have shown signs of attention to him, which caused Natalia's jealousy. The man claimed that Natalia ordered him to kill Yelena right there in the bar, and he, instead of ignoring her words, agreed to commit the heinous crime. Bakshiv explained his act by saying that he loved his wife very much and was ready to do anything for her. According to him, they lured Elena to an abandoned building near the house, where Dmitry stabbed her several times. He claimed that Natalia also took part in the murder. They then dismembered the body together and brought it home. During the interrogation, Natalia made a shocking statement that she and her husband had committed a crime involving the deaths of about 30 people during their years together. According to her, they found victims on dating websites, sedated them with chemicals, and then killed them. They stored the bodies of those killed in a refrigerator, freezer, and basement, and canned some of the remains and used them for cooking. During the interrogation, the investigators showed Natalia pictures of the missing people. One of the investigators' assistants recalled that Natalia pointed to the photographs as if she were a robot, pointing to them as if she were in the middle of nowhere and saying when and how these people had been killed. Information about the interrogation leaked to the press, probably through a leak from the police. Soon the news about the case flooded all the media. The news only talked about Krasnodar cannibals, a pair of cannibals and 30 eaten victims. Stories about this gruesome crime were broadcast not only on Russian TV channels, but also on German and French news channels. When the names of the Baksheyev photos flooded the news feeds, the public was overwhelmed by a wave of rumors and speculation. It seemed that every second person claimed to have heard something about this strange couple, especially actively discussed allegedly culinary talents of Natalia. It was said that she regularly baked pies with filling, the composition of which raised many questions, and sold them through local eateries. It was whispered that she made a stew of meat whose origin remained a mystery, and supplied it to the military base under the guise of goulash. There was even talk of her preserving human remains and selling the jars to canteens. One of the restaurant owners in an interview shared his memories of how Natalia tried to get a job as a cook. According to him, she persistently inquired about the sources of his meat products and purchase prices. Then she offered her services, assuring him that she could supply meat 3 times cheaper than the market price. But she refused, explaining that the woman seemed unpleasant to him, and that she gave off a strange odor. Now the man considers himself lucky that he did not agree to her offer. The court hearings were constantly postponed due to Dmitry's deteriorating health. He contracted tuberculosis in the pretrial detention center and was kept separate from other prisoners to prevent the spread of the disease. As a result, Natalia's trial did not begin until February 2019. A year and a half after their detention, Dmitry was tried later in June of the same year. However, the information about the 30 alleged victims was not confirmed. The investigation stated that, apart from the testimony of the defendants themselves, which they later retracted, there was no evidence of mass murder and cannibalism. As a result, the Bakshayevs were charged only with the murder of Elena Vokrushina. In this case, there was the victim's body, a confession of guilt and physical evidence. They were not even tried on charges of cannibalism, as there is no separate article in Russian law that provides for liability for this nightmarish act. Natalia was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison and 10 years in a colony. Dmitry received 12 years and 2 months in a strict regime colony, as well as compulsory psychiatric treatment. The man, however, did not serve the appointed term. February 16, 2020, Dmitry Baksheev died in prison. He suffered from type 1 diabetes and, for unknown reasons, did not receive insulin. It is not known whether he refused the injections himself or whether he was not provided with them. Either way, he died before living a year after his conviction. The case to this day provides more questions than answers. If Elena was their first and only victim, how did the couple have such professional dismemberment skills? Forensics noted that the body was cut up almost surgically. The perpetrator seemed to have had previous experience. A novice, even with an instructional video at hand, could hardly do such a job. And how do you explain a cookbook written in Natalia's hand? What kind of cook writes down recipes for dishes he's never cooked? And what about the strange photograph dated 1999? Is that made up too? After killing Elena in just 3 days, from September 8 to September 11, they allegedly committed the crime for the first time, processed the body, took photos, compiled prescription records, and lost the phone with evidence. Too much happened in such a short period of time if this was their first experience. And if it wasn't, then how many victims were there really? Only the murder of Elena Vokrushina on September 8, 2017 is reliably known. Everything else remains a mystery. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Leave your comments and share your thoughts. Bye.